Yeah. 6:30. Matt Clark, acting chairman of the Economic Development Commission in Willington. Calling to order on the Monday, January 27th meeting at 6:30 p.m. Thank you all for attending. Go for public participation. No one here in the room. Anybody online? I don't. There's participants online. See anybody? Nobody. No. There'll be another opportunity for public participation at the end of our meeting. Commission business. I'd like to make a motion that we include discussion of a letter regarding the proposed tax stabilization policy. So I'd like to be able to have a discussion of that to the agenda. We put that under A. I mean, move everything down by one, so it would be A. Letter discussion, B, commission work session, C, review 25-26 budget, D, signage update, and E, other business. You got a second on that?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so first point of business is at our last meeting, we voted to make a recommendation to the board of selectmen that Willington adopt a tax stabilization policy. This is a general policy, but not specific to any one item. However, the issue came to our attention because of the development of the battery facility in the north end of town. And the developer there approaching us to see whether or not we might be interested in doing that kind of thing. We've discussed this for several sessions, maybe 3, I don't remember, 4, something like that.
At least.
I wrote up this letter. I think you guys have a copy. So well, basically what we're saying here is that we had our discussions, we're making a recommendation to the board of selectmen that they're willing to adopt a tax stabilization policy. The benefits of the tax stabilization policy would include that it would demonstrate Willington is open for business development. Establishes surety that future energy development tax revenues are protected from future changes in energy asset tax statutes at the state level. So if the state of Connecticut goes through and says you can't charge property tax on green development, we would still be able to do it because we have a contract. They wouldn't be able to supersede that. Establishes certainty that tax assessments will not be appealed because they've been agreed to as part of the tax stabilization agreement. Both we and the owner, the real estate owner or the owner of the property will know what the taxes are going to be and will agree to them. So there's not going to be any potential for appeals and then defending for appeals. We wouldn't have to incur costs. That's number 4. And then ensures a level stream of yearly revenue for the project, which aids in steady budgeting for our town instead of going, revenues going up and down and things like that. EDC members have listened to and considered comments and opinions expressed by taxpayers both privately and in EDC meetings. The concerns associated with tax stabilization include the business could go out of business, in which case we would be out that money. However, we would be, because it is a contract, we could exercise and say, you owe that money. We would be first in bankruptcy because taxes come first. Mike, I think I'm right on that. Taxes come first, right? So in the hierarchy of what must be paid out of a business liquidation, taxes is number 1. Back taxes is number 1.
Yeah, like when everybody files a claim under a foreclosure or something.
Yeah.
Yes, I think the town slots in as like the second party.
Yeah, right. We're the first one that gets paid. What I'm saying here is the risk of that happening is kind of small. And lastly, and then also foregoing higher payment in early years means that we'd be missing out on the net present value of foregone revenue. So if we're not getting it up front, we're getting it in later years. The value of money, we're going to lose a little bit on that. Not a lot, but some. And then tax stabilization policy will get too much power to the board of selectmen. And then I just put in a paragraph here that says, we discussed these items, and in our opinion, it's a good idea to move forward with the tax stabilization policy. But I think the way that would go, is this okay with you guys? I don't know. We don't have to vote, or anything, but
No issue. We talked about it, at least.
Yeah.
Do that, do that, do that. I think the way that this would happen would be, it would be an ordinance that says that the board of selectmen has this ability. And then that would go to town meeting, and be approved or disapproved. And then the board of selectmen would write a policy about how to do that. And when they write the policy about how to do that, I think they will probably come to us as an advisory commission and say, how should we do this? In which case, it would be an item for us to do moving forward, I guess.
This is all new development going forward.
This would be on. It depends on how we structure it, but it would be development moving forward, yeah. And we would write it as, you know, we could write it as just energy, or we could write it as anything over $1 million, or we could write it as, however, it's open.
Yeah, stipulate.
Yeah. All right, good. So that would be Commission Business A, letter, Commission Business B, work session, review of strategic, what, do we want to switch this at all? Do we want to go over these other things that are much shorter in duration?
Sure.
Let's move to B, review of fiscal 25-26 budget. We were just talking about this briefly, Mike, online before this meeting. I think that in 23-24 budget year, the Economic Development Commission's Economic Development Commission's budget was about $23,000. This encompassed consulting fees for Tai Chi Consulting, which is Mike's group, and John, sorry, John. And then also we had a budget for signage as well. And I don't think we do any kind of subscriptions or anything like that for online services or websites or anything like that, do we?
Nope.
No. So that's the extent of our budget. It was cut from 23,000 in 23-24 to 17,000 in 24-25. I think what I would like to do is ask the Board of Selectmen to increase that back up to 23,000. And that would mean that we would have the ability to move forward with our signing program. We have one sign installed.
We have both signs made where we have one installed and we're working with the property owner on the fallback because the proposed location of the second sign fell through. So we'll try to get the next one installed as you come over the highway, as you come over the railroad tracks. Where with Phelps on the right there.
Right, exactly. And then after this, our plans had been for 2 more, I believe. Is that right?
We had looked at other locations on 32 and 74.
Yeah. So there would be 2 more. So and the plan initially was 1 sign per year. Last year, we couldn't move forward because our budget was cut. So what do you guys think about? Are there any other issues or any other things that we want to consider in terms of budgetary items?
What was the reason for the cut? Feedback or?
Yeah, I don't think it had to do with the value of having an economic development commission or the work that we do. I think it had everything to do with
Money back.
we made a proposal for a 5.6%. I don't remember exactly. It was 7.6, and I think it was 5.6% increase, which was defeated at referendum. The Board of Finance had to make cuts anywhere they possibly could in order to get it down. And we came up with a 2.5 or 2.7% increase. We were one of the ones that got cut. Anyway,
That's why we're talking.
our feedback on the work that we're doing and on the assignments that we did was absolutely wonderful. We're very, very happy. Okay. Good.
So I don't know if you got if Matt, you got a separate copy of the budget. I got all the other ones that I submit back to Donna. I have to have them in by like the 2nd week of February. So if you want me to submit this in with all the P and Z, wetland, all the other land use stuff, is the plan to submit it at the 23-24 fiscal year rate? Is that what?
That's what we're saying. We wanted, right. I'm sorry.
23-24 at the 23,000.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys good with that? All right, then the next thing is the signage update. Any update, Mike, on the alternate site for our
Yeah, I can jump in if that's all right. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah,
Yep. So, I had a lot of communication problems getting a hold of the people that own the Phelps Plaza. Well, as Mike said, we kind of struck out with the Dollar General parcel, sort of behind the guardrail at the Dollar General property. So we are looking at Phelps Plaza, basically, a sign across the railroad tracks, basically in front of the old bike shop, that the freestanding building in the front of the plaza. And the owner agreed that that would be a reasonable location and didn't have any issues with it. But I have been having basically email problems. I call her and say, hey, I'm sending you an email. Please let me know when you get it. And then she doesn't email back. And then I call her again. And she's like, oh, yeah, I got that email, but didn't reply. Anyway, that's a long story short. But we basically are agreed in principle. I just need her signature on basically the same liability thing that basically says, the town is putting this on your property. You don't have any liability. The town will take care of it. That we signed with the owner of the property on Route 32. So we just basically need that signature, and then following that, we need the ground to unfreeze to allow that to happen. So I think we should have that in place relatively soon, and we'll hope for an early thaw. But it's happening.
good news.
Very good news.
Okay. Next one is commission work session, review of strategic plan, draft strategic plan. Do we need to accept the minutes from the last meeting?
Yeah, it's at the bottom,
I was at the
I
bottom.
didn't do that yet.
under 4 or 5.
All right, so then the next one was our economic development commission strategic plan. I have a copy here. I read this one too. I read the plan of conservation and development from 2018 or 19 or something. Then I read this old one, plan of development, as well. And then I read this one, and this was from 2015. And this is the market study of Willington's business zones and report to the town of Willington Economic Development Commission from Fairweather Consulting, November 2015. And I thought it'd be helpful if we just if I could just read a couple of these things off to you guys.
This is from 2015.
This is from 2015. Yeah, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items. Is that all right? So the first one's on page 22. Hold on a second here. A little bit confusing to get around this report. Just a minute. So 22. Yeah. Maybe I can make copies of this and I can send this to you guys. And I'll send you in order to track business, Willington should allow mixed use of its business zones to accommodate smaller footprint uses such as specialty retail with housing. Recruiting efforts should be focused on Willington's ease of access to 84, Route 44, Route 32, and businesses serving New York City and Boston areas. And then it says enhance local economic development capacity. The commission needs to conduct outreach to industry targets by attending trade shows and enhancing marketing efforts. Needs to assist with the development process, processing applications, finding funding for new projects, etc. In addition, the commission needs to work with local business and retailers to further development. And then they go into some more things here, but basically what they're saying here is we want to focus on industry targets, which is what is in the current analysis and plan that we talked about, and then market to those, which is the second part of what this guy's talking about. I thought that was interesting and good. The next one I'd like to talk about a little bit is increasing certainty of regulations. And this may be kind of, this is from 2015. Now, I don't know whether or not this is the impetus for, I can never get the acronym right. Recently,
No, SDZ,
yeah. Okay.
only because that's, I'm not sure how that came to be, because it was 2015 and I've been here since 18, but
This is interesting. So under Wellington's current zoning, agriculture is the only as of right throughout the town. All other uses require a special permit.
More or less, that's almost the case. There's a little bit of change that's been with that in the South Willington Village Zone that we did during COVID. Allows things by right, more mixed use.
Yeah, so then they go on there, and what I've underlined here is that a solution to this issue is to allow certain uses as a right, such as those industries that Wellington is targeting, like business services, research lab, advanced light manufacturing, whatever. This gives applicants confidence that projects conform to those uses that conform to those uses will move forward. This is, I think, exactly what our commission did in kind of consultation with the Planning and Zoning Commission with our special development zones, which was to give people an opportunity to, with some surety, some knowledge, some confidence that their project is going to be received and be actionable. So that was good. So one of the things in Ernie's report, the one I'm going to be going over in a few minutes, is that almost our entire town was zoned residential, R80, I think, right?
85% of it.
85%. When someone looks for properties or places, you know, they don't want to look and say, I would have to try and get, 130 acres of land redeveloped as something else, or excuse me, reclassified as something else. So.
Time and money.
Yeah, right. And then they talk about design guidelines here. And they also talk that Wellington should seek ways to create public sewer and water and state-of-the-art broadband access for the town. It has occurred to me, and then they have some recommendations here. I'll make copies of this and distribute it, not the whole thing, just the pages that I just talked about. And I'll distribute it for us to consider. When you think about development in Wellington in the long term, 10, 20, 30 years, I came from East Hampton, Connecticut, that's my hometown. And they made the decision in the 1980s to provide water and sewer. It was a many millions and millions and millions of dollars of work. All of it, almost all of it paid for by other people's money. I'm not going to propose that for Wellington at this point. And I wouldn't, I think it's premature. But if you think about what is going to be needed for Wellington in the future, large, development wants to have public services. And they need to. We have some water. This building is served by public water. Our schools are served by public water. Parts of South Wellington are served by public water. You may want to consider something like that moving forward.
I agree. I mean, water is going to be the biggest mainstay. You've got to have a well and a septic on a property. They have to be X amount of feet away. At least if you can offer the water, you can utilize the property to have a septic to service it. But to have both on some of these smaller parcels, commercial lots, it really limits what you can do. So trying to somehow in the future get water at least starting to come up to these areas will start to change that.
That was mentioned in the hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Well, it's a wall.
Yeah. It's something for us to be thinking about moving forward.
I ran the numbers on 60 rooms, best case scenario, I'm saying. You look at what the real estate taxes are versus what the lodging revenue would be.
Yeah.
Unquote. Represents anywhere between 18-20%. I'll tell you in a minute.
You did the analysis for the developer.
As a developer, that's what I do for a living. It was $430,000. for a $3 million business. And I'm talking food, I'm not talking recreation, I'm not talking entertainment, I'm just saying. Best case scenario, it's sold out 365 days a year at $150 a night.
Let's hold that for a little while.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Okay.
All right, so what I'd like to propose, I think, we're not gonna be able to get through this 80-page or 100-page or whatever it is deck in one sitting, but let's see how much headway we can make. We wanna try and go for, what did we say? We wanted to try and go for an hour, is that right?
45 minutes.
There's a meeting at 7:30, so in 40 minutes.
40 minutes, so let's break open our plans and discuss what Ernie's been telling us. I have on my page one, my title page, I have written down, executive summary needs to tell a story. I looked at the executive summary page here, and it's good, and what he's done is he pulled the most important facts and information from the report, put it in the executive summary. It'd be better developed if we could have this telling some kind of a story, which is, here's where Willington is. Here's what the situation is. Here are the facts regarding Willington, its location, its competitive environment, and what makes, and then something about opportunities. And what the opportunities are, then a description of the work that was done. And then what the work, what the development opportunities are. And then what the action steps are for us here at the Economic Development Commission, how we can help facilitate that. And that should be in the executive summary, and there could be sections of the executive summary that go over each of those. So that we would have a 4-page executive summary that would form the basis for some kind of a presentation, a couple of graphs and things like that. That's my thoughts on the executive summary. Do you guys have others? No?
I tried to view it as more just a layperson that's taking this document and trying to read it for what it is, and there's a lot of information there, there's a lot to digest, and I think, you know, the average person that's just gets into it is, it all has to be here, but it's easy to get lost in it very quickly. And I think your idea of an executive summary to tell a little bit of a story versus more bulletin points to just kind of like an introduction might soften it to just the average reader a little bit, just to engage a little bit more.
Yeah. You know, my suggestion would be, you know, Ernie's been doing this for 35 or 40 years. I mean, you know, it would be to work backwards from what the reader is wanting to get from it. Develop sections for each of those, you know, key aspects of what the reader wants to see. And then include the information as necessary along with the recommendations. He's done a good job. You know, at the very end of the report, we won't get to it today. But at the very end of the report, we've done a very good job in conclusions, summary and conclusions, going with facts and steps.
Yeah.
And steps, so. But that needs to be brought forward in the executive summary. Good.
You know, I thought it was a good summary. It lacked a lot of template with regards to, it was covered. It was covered in text, but it lacked a template with regards to carrying out. I'm more fundamental. I want to know how I'm going to get there. Talking to the stakeholders and getting the admin of the town involved, and the selectmen involved, and tie-ins to planning and zoning. We've been beating on a nice drum for about 8 months. And I don't know how we get it started, but we gotta get started. Because that's gonna take a while. And, you know, and maybe in Ernie's executive summary, he can take it from us that we need some help. Because this is what we're trying to accomplish. Now, he put in his own kind words that now the work begins.
Right.
And we gotta get in front of the right people, we gotta get that tie-in. From everything from planning and zoning all the way through the selectmen and the town office here. And when you go from moving something along, you have a template that you can at least measure, is a great idea. That, you know, as I read it, I said, you know, Ernie did a decent job. And maybe he can tailor the summary more towards the people who are gonna read it as opposed to us. We're not arguing with it, but, you know, we said right from the beginning, you said it 2 months into this thing, we have a need.
Yeah.
I know, and we do. And part of the need is we have to present a town that is looking and is open for business.
Yeah.
On our limitation, you know. You agree?
Yeah, I agree. You know, looking at the executive summary that he has written here now, if you go to the second page. The second bullet, it talks about Willington being 33 square miles, 21,000 acres, blah, blah, blah. Less than, and it's the only 1,000 acres or less than 5%.
5%.
Currently zoned to allow commercial or other business operations. One of the greatest constraints faced by the town of Willington in pursuit of significant economic development benefit is the relative scarcity of land available for commercial development. And also, if it's not, if it's only 5%, you know, we have lots of land that can be redone, you know, recategorized. But no, I don't know, I'm not a developer, you are, but no developer is gonna wanna go in there and go, oh yeah, it's great, it's perfect, right in the right location, right type of land, you know, dirt cheap, very, very good, but look, it's not zoned. I don't even think they'll even look. It's not, like, doesn't even exist.
Well, I think the average, generally speaking, they would, but not, right now, when they look, they find all the news articles from 2 years ago, so now they don't. Because was a piece of, you know, that checked all the boxes and it was responsive to the market and it was rushed out of here with very direct sort of
Feedback.
So what do you do? What do you do if the market is demanding X and the residents are saying, we don't want X?
We had two ways of going about this, which, the first way was to have, what, I can never remember the damn acronym.
SDZ,
SDZ, Special Development Zone.
strategic.
Strategic
Yep.
Development Zone. I mean, that's one way to go about it. The other way to go about it is to reclassify, is to hold hearings and classify land as commercial development.
Well, if you go with the process, and if we start getting the momentum, we include the landowners, the people, the people who own these parcels that can start and get their involvement. I don't. You want to, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, because you have to have something to sell. And if we use the ones that are property zoned, but at the same time, again, if Ernie orchestrates a great summary, we're gonna have some sweaty palms. With regards to, when your real estate taxes go up.
Oh, mine didn't go up that much. No, so it is, the value of one, I can't remember, so I think 17% or something like that, 14%. Yeah. That's a lot. My salary didn't go up 17%.
So I'm saying, we're getting to the point right now where we need to develop this alternate revenue source. You know, that's why the population is continuing to drop.
So one of the things that we've been kind of talking about is fits under a broad umbrella of investment. And there is an upfront investment that's required by any developer. And that's one of the benefits of the stabilization agreement, because it allows them to kind of pay less upfront when cash is tight, because they've just dumped it all into a development. And we've talked before about the water infrastructure costs that the warehouse would have had, which was about between $9 and $11 million just to bring water. One of the big concerns that the Planning and Zoning Commission has talked about is the idea that a large scale development, whether it be, you know, Willington large scale at 250,000 square feet or 1 million or whatever, is going to, what effect will that have on wells? We heard a lot about that during the warehouse proposal. The answer is everybody has a different opinion. I mean, the summary in my mind is, everybody will tell you what they think is gonna happen. Some people will tell you nothing, there's enough water. Other people will tell you there's no way to know, and other people will tell you it's gonna draw down all the water, we're gonna have no water, and we're all screwed. And they are concerned that we don't have answers to. And so something that I've kind of been thinking about is, maybe what we need to do is start chipping away at defining answers to questions that have already been raised. Traffic, well, that's pretty easy because we can do a traffic study and that's data. Water, sewer is a problem we can't really solve because we don't have it nearby. But we know what the concerns have been. The concerns will be similar no matter what the development type is and where, because it's a pretty short defined list. Property values, water, sewer, traffic, noise, light, destruction of natural resources. So maybe we start trying to see how we can better define some of those.
Some of the projects that are outlined in this plan wouldn't be a problem for a lot of those things you just mentioned. I mean, noise, no, light, no, I think. What were some of the other ones? I can't remember. Traffic, no.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest issue that we're gonna have is the most prime piece of real estate is the parcel that warehouse was proposed for. That's what people are gonna wanna develop on, and I think most people just don't want anything there, because they don't want to see it from the highway. There's nothing that we're gonna be able to do unless they bring this thing down so much that it's like surrounded in a bowl like a stadium. So, but I guess where I'm going with that is, we're gonna need to start kind of, I think, looking at some of those things and looking at what the concerns were and is there anything that we can do? The other thing that I think is worth considering is, we may have talked about this before, is TIF, tax increment financing. And that is a plan the town would adopt that uses a portion of new revenues generated by new development to pay for the investment and infrastructure needed within the TIF area. And so if you have a parcel that's valued at $100, there's a new development that's gonna make it valued at $1,000. A portion of that $900 delta gets funded back into the TIF area to fund increases in the infrastructure. So it could be, we're gonna do the next set of engineering for the water line extension. It could be, we're going to upgrade to the 3-phase power. We're gonna bring a data line because we need to be able to provide 5G for the workers, whatever it is. But a lot of the developments that you kind of see have been stalled, we don't really want to do, and you hear about, have had TIF involved. Windsor Locks used TIF successfully for Montgomery Mills. Cheshire used TIF successfully for their redevelopment on one of their corridors. Southington used it for their industrial core. They can get better terms with a bank because there's a guaranteed reinvestment in that area by some of those TIF dollars. But you have to have it before the development happens. You can't retroactively drop a TIF because if the development is there, that increased revenue is gone. So you need to have it in place before that infrastructure is needed and the development occurs. But if you're looking at running water down 32 from a 12-inch main that's at 195, you're talking $10 million, right? The only development that's gonna fund something like that is something that's 1 million+ square feet and can cover it. We're not likely gonna have that, which means you need to figure out a way to close that gap.
Do you think there's any grant money available for a water research study for economic development within a town to determine whether or not, well, it would be viable to do something or in the town's best interest to try to bring in water?
So I don't know about like an actual study to just decide how much would it cost and what would it take. We know that there's water and that there's enough capacity on 195. That part we know.
Well, I meant more like a research on domestic watershed.
Yeah, you'd need a big enough
Determine viability for something.
Yeah, I think that Connecticut Water would not do it unless there was one or multiple people that was gonna.
I think what Mike is saying is, can we fund the project to answer the question? If there's a development, what will happen to my well?
I mean,
right, Mike?
Yeah.
I think that's a really, really, really hard answer, question to answer, because you modeling underground groundwater modeling and aquifers and groundwater table. I'm not sure how you, I think you need a lot of, I'm not gonna say it's not. What is that noise? Sounds like a doorbell.
Yeah, and the next bullet down, by the way, third one down on this page, page 6, says, it says 500 acres, 500 vacant acres of currently zoned commercial.
Yeah.
Almost nothing, so your inventory is like almost zero.
I think there's,
30% of the 1,000 acres.
you know, I think that there's potentially some value in looking at some of those things and trying to understand, you know, what the answers could be. Connecticut Water, you know, it's not gonna cost anything for the town to talk to them, it wouldn't cost anything to talk about capacity and some of these other things, but they're not gonna run a $10 million water line for a small user. So the only way to make that happen is to get a big user, but if the town doesn't want a big user, we've gotta find monies that are available to make that cost, you know. So that's kind of what we have to look for with grants and stuff for those types of projects, but you gotta have a plan. And you gotta know what the user, where you're gonna end up, where's the water line gonna go?
Right, we're an informal group here, so.
Oh, good to go.
Economic Development Commission.
Mike Brindier,
Hi, Mike.
You're here for,
7:30.
yeah, wetlands at 7:30.
Yes,
Yep.
Now you're gonna listen to the economic
good
development.
to go. Good to go.
About 15 or 20 minutes.
And you're throwing us out.
Right. Okay, so, the next thing that observation I had here, was that, this plan, you know, is suggesting about $2.5 million of revenue at build out. So that's 12% of our budget right now. So that's really good. And then we talked a lot about what that would be, how it would be, you know, what the steps are and things like that. So the next part,
You know, the reality is what we're summarizing.
Yeah.
We just spent 10 minutes talking about some of the speed bumps that we're gonna have to address from an administrative standpoint, from a permitting standpoint, from a marketing program. To get people interested, but as you said earlier, Mike, no one's gonna put $10 million in water pipeline for a 200,000 square foot building. So I think we need to have some early successes.
Correct.
Small niche successes at the same time, work on, as you were saying earlier, what we need to do internally to leave it. Get the momentum. And I think if we can get Ernie to structure that, and that something that we want to read it and understand it, because this is, I mean, he does say it's a 2 to 4 year deal. If we start with niches, carve out some successes. Get a living, if you come here and you put a million square feet, you don't even have a strategic development zone, or you permitting is 5% for land. Consider. People go,
yeah.
Wrong approach.
No, I agree.
I mean, it's an honest result
Right.
with regards to. This is gonna take time. We gotta be aggressive.
Posted.
Unfortunately, numerous clouds.
Yeah, that was a while ago,
Oh.
but we fixed it. Got it back. Using it on gravel.
Yeah, another point I wanted to make here was, this principle of supply pull and demand push. I thought that was pretty well done, so.
Push pull.
Yeah, it kind of really explained it to, you know, all the little subtle nuances that everybody's looking for in a nice way, that
Right.
it's not realistic for our demographic, our size, our decline, then I can appreciate and was subtle about it, but really kind of drilled it home that this is the reality.
One of the things I got through, which wasn't said in there was, the only way that kind of thing works is if it's, the demand pull is so big, so huge. That it creates demand all on its own. We gave the example of Disney World. It's not gonna be a Disney World in Willington, that's for sure.
Correct.
But, that's the example we gave. The only other issue, the only other thing that comes to my mind is large entertainment
And
venue.
that.
It's very large, you know, 30,000. You know, person events.
It just looks like a big thing.
That would,
I just look like any water in there.
but that's a huge destination,
Right. Yeah, if you build it, they will come type of thing.
right? Something about baseball fields.
We're doing a septic over.
He approached that road, he approached
Yeah,
micro
It's
niche
so cool.
where
Every day,
businesses
break the frost.
can
Everybody
grow.
get dirt.
Yeah.
That's
Do what you're doing for the
And
day, the
they've got
next
some
day.
investment that's just gonna stay with the residents.
Right.
Another delicatessen, another hardware store.
Which is that, we just made rock.
And again, I think-
Frozen chunks.
It's gonna be hard to market it at this level,
Yeah.
not right
We
away.
had that full snap.
Right.
Right.
We gotta get some success.
Yeah, there's gotta be some small things that put along, well, no, right, to get people to see that it can work. And okay, it's gonna be progressive. And it's possible.
I agree.
Right.
the next section of this report went into,
I found.
different sectors.
Maybe they'll put something in there.
And I think it was there 9 or 10, I can't recall.
Yeah, 10 different
He was
sectors.
very, very supportive of the hospitality sector.
It's not worth touching it.
And the technology sector. It was all well done, I thought, it was okay. Talks a lot about our proximity.
When it's full like this.
One thing that was not here, which was an analysis of,
Kind of. Shells.
warehousing and distribution. Is not one of the sectors we looked at.
I included in mobility.
Okay, yes, that's true, you're right.
Yeah, included in mobility.
Just soften a bit.
I understand.
Instead of just warehouse distribution.
I like distribution, logistics, you know, railroading, trucking.
Normally bring people. And then. I mean. Right in the corner. This is the most open.
You know,
Just
just
cut in half.
what's going on right now.
There.
Every
Cut in
corner
half
has
all the way.
urgent healthcare, lab.
Get down to hard.
Just, oh,
But 2 feet on average.
we got 3 hospitals in Connecticut that are going out of business.
Bail.
Yeah,
As much as you.
But I like that life sciences.
Put a pump there. Cause it'll.
You know, we look at, we got a dentist in town, we've got a doctor who was in town, now he's up in Stafford Spring, Dr. Lawson, so there's,
And then
there's,
the
you know,
next day, it comes back halfway.
there's some opportunity there for labs.
Keep throwing it
But
back
to
and
have
back.
population.
What's nice there is.
You'd think we'd
As
be able
soon
to
as
draw,
you
but
get
they
to
haven't
the
all
edge
the
of
plans
the
there.
You're taking that through the valve.
One of those things where I say, well, health here, with
I gotta ask you a favor. We have, folks that are joining on Zoom for this meeting. And if you're talking and we're talking, they're not gonna be able to make out.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right, it's all right. Thank you, I appreciate your cooperation.
no, I mean, I just think that life science is big, that we can do business with.
Yes, the next part I wanted to talk about, we're gonna close out this meeting in about 5 or 10 minutes, but the next part I wanted to talk about was, this Willington land use context discussion. And this is, he goes into in depth on, the R80 zone and the, commercial zones and the, designated industrial. I had a question on this, Mike, that you might know the answer to. I'm on page 42. It has designated industrial, and It goes in the middle of that paragraph, which I'm not really quite familiar with. It says special permits can be allowed for manufacturing, processing, research, development, strategic storage, warehousing, and wholesale sale, blah, blah, it goes on and on and on. I'm not, I don't understand this. DI zone, only Willington occupies 700 acres of property. Now, I thought previously we talked about that it was 5% at 500 acres, but it's far with 5%. And
5% at 1,000 acres. I think is what it was.
all right,
And so that's total zoned land. And at one point, he's referencing now, the specific to the DI zone, which is an industrial zone in town, which is FedEx, which is, a small area on, a couple of parcels in South Willington on River Road. The 300 and some acre parcel that surrounds FedEx, which is, owned by Becker's,
Okay.
so those are all there. So those are the uses which are permitted by special permit on that, in that zone. I don't think we have a zoning map up. No, it's on the other side here.
okay.
So that parcel is 300 something acres. It's already zoned industrial, but everything is by special permit. So that's where he spoke earlier about what's allowed by right, which is essentially just ag. So you can do all those, but it's by special permit.
I mean, I think one of the decisions we have to make here moving forward is do we want to do the SDZ thing and revitalize that, or do we want to go through and do a formal categorization and ask the P and Z to do a formal categorization and increase the amount of commercial property? And is there an appeal process for that? I don't even know. Because if we go through, we change a piece of property from residential to commercial. Is there a process where it has to be asked for by the landowner?
So, I mean, we have to do a notification to that person, anybody that's abutting that person in any municipality that's within 500 feet of.
This can't happen wholesale. It would have to be demand based. No one's gonna want to do this proactively.
I mean, so this is the zoning map, everything you see in green, that's the South Willington Village Zone, that was done entirely proactively by this commission during COVID. So they were notified that here's what we're gonna do, we had a public meeting where we explained what the reg was proposed. And why, et cetera, we answered questions, we had follow-up, I had meetings with people one-on-one. So I would guess 75% of any of the zoning changes that happen in any town in Connecticut are proactive by the commission. So when we're talking about DI, we're talking about purple. So this is 32. This is FedEx, this is the big piece behind it, and a couple of smaller pieces there, and this is on the opposite side of the road in between 84. And then there's a couple of parcels that are behind the storage.
Who owns those large parcels?
This is FedEx.
Southeast of FedEx.
So this is FedEx, and then this is owned also by the small purple one here with the little hook, and these are all essentially owned by Becker.
All that right there.
Yeah, this is a 350 or 80 or something acre parcel.
How about the ones that are white that aren't zoned?
I believe white, everything white is R80. So that's residential.
Already? Yeah.
This tall skinny piece here is owned by Mr. Clee, I think. Herb Clee.
Oh, Herb Clyde.
Clyde Clee.
Yeah.
He's got that one. I think maybe this one, I'm not sure. And then a lot of these, even though they show purple, most of it is very wet. So looking at, the whole town.
I'd like to, we're gonna close off here in a minute. The other comment, so we're ending at page 42 there about. The other comment that I had was, one of the things we asked for in our proposal is, when we did this project was analysis of town needs in comparison to what we can do if we implement a full economic development plan. Ernie did the analysis of potential revenue from development for, and that was about $2.5 million or something like that. What wasn't there was an analysis of, future needs for the town of Willington and the effect on tax rates.
They went into the budget, but he didn't,
No,
He's in
it stopped.
no, he's not.
So I'm gonna be looking at that a little more, in a little more depth and trying to figure out what kind of counsel or suggestion I can provide moving forward. And provide and give you more detail, more useful detail in that. Do you have any comments on that?
Who do we speak to?
Hmm?
We want to find out who we speak to.
You want to find out what? Sorry, I was writing something down.
Size the needs analysis. What you're taking in from revenue, what you spend. What the performer is in the next 5 years. Talk about this, so I know,
Yeah.
Ernie basically covered it. 30,000 foot level,
Yeah, 80,000,
80,000.
180,000.
I mean, I explained to Ernie, we've talked about, you know, if we know what the data is, we can get the data. As far as, you know, what's the, I mean, it's, a lot of it is online, what's our current, you know, RAN list, what's the mill rate, what's the revenue? All that stuff is coming there. It's hard to know without a real strong capital plan, what 5 years from now looks like. You know, and so when you go through and look at some of the capital plans that you'll see, something that's in year 3 doesn't necessarily get funded in year 3, right? Things just kind of get pushed. And so it's hard to, if I gave Ernie the capital plan now and said, paint us a picture to 2030. He could do it, but it's probably not gonna be based in a lot of reality because the way that the capital plan is kind of structured. So, and we talked about that. He was talking about, like, I want to sit down and I want to meet with your public works director to understand what you know, he's thinking for expenditures and road costs. And, you know, how much he thinks, you know, it's gonna take over the next 5 years to do what we have to do. And I want to meet with finance to understand some of those things and.
I think we just need to make, I understand what you're getting at. So
Yeah.
There's 2 ways of doing this. One is bottom up, which is what you're describing, what Ernie's asking for. The other one is top down, which is to say that, you know, we can fund more capital expenditures, which everyone in this town wants. With more development, and we need to illustrate that. So. For $2.5 million more in revenue, in commercial development, will help us fund X number of dollars bonded for 20 years. In capital expenditures, because we have a salt shed, we have 2 schools, we have buildings, we have roads that we're not doing, you know. I can go on and on and on and on and on. But there's 2 ways of doing it. One is bottom up, the other one's top down. Maybe we're using the wrong approach, and what we should be doing is top down and just saying, prescribing. This is what we want to do. We have to close this out because we're at 7:30 almost,
So I think, you know, just thinking about next steps, if the next meeting is 4 weeks from now, if you guys take the next week or so to send me any comments, I mean, what we can do is summarize and kind of get all these comments over to Ernie as sort of the preliminary feedback or sort of the first round of feedback in order for him to start honing in on a draft that makes a little bit more
you
sense.
guys think about meeting in 2 weeks?
I think we need a working meeting.
You're gonna have, well, we'll have to look at Board of Selectmen, right? You'll have an overlap with Wes.
Yeah,
That's fine by me. I'm gonna wish you bye. I think you're good.
you sure? My overlap with board of selectmen in there isn't one on the 10th. So I have a board of selectmen on the 3rd. 10th is open.
February 10th. I have something at 7. It's virtual, so I could either. I'm trying to figure out how,
What's the 17th is a holiday, isn't it?
President's Day.
and you'll end up having your Board of Selectmen again, right? Because aren't you every other?
The board of selectmen is pushed for the holiday.
Well, what if you, I mean, you could meet earlier and you guys could be here and I could just be from Zoom.
On the 10th, on the 10th. we
On the
can
10th.
be earlier.
Could you meet before 6:30?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock work.
This one, but
Sure,
Yeah, I got no problem.
5 o'clock, 10.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your help. You're cooperative.
And a motion to accept the meeting notes from our
Oh, yes, very good.
December 30th.
December 30th.
30th, yep.
Okay, you made the motion, I'll second the motion.
I made the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion to adjourn,
I second the motion.
Done.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.